Focus, November 11th, 2016. So the last couple of Friday Focuses, we talked about your wildly important goals for your department. I've been meeting with a lot of the departments already and a lot of the teams. You know, we really are just one big team made up of teams. And wildly important goals have been selected, such as increasing consults into production from 35 to 70%, or 55% rather. Wildly important goals for the cosmetic side have been increasing revenue per new patient, offering different services and things that can drive that number. For the Culture Club and Mars team, it was more like improving the net promoter scores at the different offices. The surgery team decided they want to increase the number of patient reviews. And then we go into the lead measures, because that's a lag measure, something you can't do anything about because it already occurred. Revenue per new patient, rebook rates. The lead measures could be, for example, for the patient reviews for surgery, they decided that they were going to have more consistent communication with the patient to make the experience better. They were going to call them and have patients much more prepared for surgery before and afterwards. They were going to try to make it so that the same person saw them in their consult, sees them in their pre-op and then their post-op. Or at least if it's a different person doing the consult, they introduce them. They were going to increase the likelihood of getting to hold the patient within the next 40 hours up to 90%. Right now you would call and leave messages or figure out how to do that better. So those are things that are going to move that needle. Now the next two parts are called the scorecard and then the cadence of accountability. So the scorecard is something that once you've selected your wildly important goal and you've determined what lead measures move that forward. Lead measures means something that you can actively do to increase the likelihood of hitting your wild important goal. And the scorecard is your own personal accountability or your team's accountability. In the case of the cosmetic team, they decided they were going to do more what they call introductions. In other words, if a derm patient or a vein patient or cosmetic patient was introduced to other services, did you know we have hormone replacement? Did you know we have dermatology? If they did that, say 10 times a day for individual service lines, more likely I'd move that needle forward, okay, in terms of revenue per new patient, because we're introducing some other services that they probably want in our office. So your scorecard is how many times. Their scorecard, they pick something like, let's say it might have been for a certain individual, might have been 10. They're going to do 10 introductions a day. Okay, that's reasonable. If you have a scorecard and you measure it every day and you see if you're hitting it or not, at the end of the week or month or whatever your period of time is, you look at the frequency at which you carried out your scorecard. So a scorecard is something that in some cases is going to be a team scorecard, but in general there's going to be also an individual scorecard. I know since we've been rolling this out, some teams are confused whether that should be individual or team, and something you really still need to work out. I think we're still working on that. But ultimately, you'll have your individual scorecard, so you have your individual accountability, and then you'll have a team scorecard. So as a team making this happen as a whole, as a practice making it happen, and the scorecards also allow you see who's struggling that can use some help, and who's doing great that might be the person that's coaching the person that's struggling. So somebody's just really hitting it really well, and they're real consistent. They can coach their coworkers who are maybe struggling on what they're doing to make it happen, what hurdles they can overcome. Okay, so your scorecard should be very visible. And a scorecard should be something you can see every day. We might eventually make it electronic, but I'm still want visible ones so we can walk in and see them. And the scorecard is something that's going to measure your performance to which you committed to do and your team's performance. I think Livonia started out with making some scorecards. Mario showed me something he was working on. Some of the other ladies here started working on different scorecards, and they're kind of developing. And over time, we'll find out what scorecards may be the best for us, which one we can kind of roll out. We can take good ideas that different people made up and make even better and better ones. That's one of the parts about growing, is always learning and adapting. And then accountability, cadence of accountability, is the other part that needs to occur for this to happen. And that's where there's a regular scheduled meeting where you're blocking production and reviewing your lead measures, your lag measure. So your lag measure is the wildly important goal. Lead measure are the things you're going to do to move that goal forward. The scorecard is your individual and your team's performance, and the accountability is where you meet and discuss it and review how you're doing, what you're going to do to make it better going forward. The other part is what we call personal accountability. So, or commitments, let's call it commitments, that might be a better term. So when I was at Livonia's office this week, they decided they were going to move, they had already decided that what their wildly important goal was getting a certain percentage and more people into production from consults so we can deliver our brand promise. And their lead indicators were various things. And, one of the ladies, Angie, had like a brilliant idea that maybe the person that sees the patients might recognize it, but somebody else might not. She said, don't we have an Uber account? Can we figure out how to get Uber so with that person have a ride, we can overcome that objection and get a ride? Well, brilliant idea, right? Because if you have a patient, our staff is here working, and we're all here working, and the patient doesn't have a ride in there, there's this big lost opportunity. Get an Uber ride, right? That's a simple, brilliant solution. Somebody else had a question about how they were going to make sure we can communicate with each other when calls come in with objections, how to handle it. And we had some ideas we talked about. And you have to assign people accountability to those metrics. So Angie's now going to have to work with, maybe the IT team to make sure that Uber's on the iPads. We have to work out some things like what happens, when you get an Uber, they call you, where they're calling, I don't know. So the steps that need to be worked out. But the commitment is, I'm going to take care of this and figure out how we have Uber for our patients who don't have a ride. And then at your weekly meetings, you can see how far they got to their commitments. It might take a month to get it done, it might take a week. Okay, so you have, on your cadence of accountability, you do it weekly. You might even consider it like a WIG, widely important goal huddle, like an extended huddle. So instead of making your huddle 10 minutes, you might make it 20 or 30 minutes. In your weekly accountability, you'll look at your wildly important goal, your lead measures, your scorecard, and then you'll review your commitments. On a daily basis on your huddle, I would recommend that you remind yourselves what your wildly important goal and your lead measures are, but don't go over the scorecard unless you have something to brag about that's really exciting, or something you did that really was a big hurdle that you want the team to know. But imagine that once a week you want to go through all 4 of these things, and then daily you talk about and identify what your wildly important goal is, so everybody remembers this is our wildly important goal. I was with one of the teams here today, and they were talking about their wildly important goal was getting net promoter scores to rise, to get over 75% of all offices. And if it's wildly important, we can almost put any resources into it. Because if it's wildly important, it's going to have a huge positive impact on us and our community. Okay? And the lead measures so that people remember where they're at. And then the scorecard should be looked at least once a week. And your commitments should be identified. So if you have a team and one person's doing all the commitments, you're not really functioning as a team, right? So you need to share the commitments around. So that's the plan. This is how we get things executed, how we get things from strategy and execution, and it requires you to do your part. We'll have all departments in the office eventually into WIG meetings, just like we do in huddles. Maybe we don't carry it off as well as we could, so these are always room for improvement. But that'll be the plan, and thank you very much.